So Tanner, just kicking it off right here, starting with a story from the Big Ten. For those that don't know, Ohio State played about 5 games, and the Big Ten had a rule 6-game minimum to play in the conference championship. And of course, they changed that rule this week to account for the fact that Ohio State hadn't played 6 games. So, kind of, what is that? Yeah, I guess your thoughts on what that rule change kind of means for the Big Ten.
Well, Zach, I guess the question you have to first ask is, would the Big Ten make this decision if it were any other team in the conference as of right now? And, I'm not so sure that they would, so I really don't agree with the decision. I understand, yes, Ohio State is a very good team, and honestly, as of right now, the most likely to represent the Big Ten in the college football playoff. But it's also just hard kind of from just a fairness perspective that they're changing a rule for a specific team. And in particular, I'm thinking of, Indiana University. They've had an amazing season led by Tom Allen, a fantastic coach. Their defense is arguably one of the best in the country, and they've done so many great things. So it's just unfortunate that they have to be in the same division as Ohio State. We knew Northwestern was in. They've been good from the start, and they were bound to play for a conference championship. So, and in that game, from the Hoosiers and the Buckeyes, the Hoosiers were only 3, maybe even 4 plays away from winning that game. And so far, without a doubt, they've been Ohio State's toughest matchup of the year. So, again, as I said, it's disappointing to see these two teams in the same division, which prevents the Hoosiers a chance for the Big Ten championship. So I don't really like this decision by the Big Ten. I understand why. I just don't really like it that they changed the minimum amount of games in order to be eligible.
So I want to push back on that a little bit, Tanner. I agree with you. I think if it were the Big Ten, if there was any other team in the Big Ten, Ohio State is the only team that gets this sort of treatment this year. But you have to look at it. They're the best team in the Big Ten. They're the only team in the Big Ten who's going to make it all the way to that has a chance to make it into the playoff and possibly play for a national championship. So not only does it help Ohio State, it helps the conference as a whole. You have to look at the Pac-12. They haven't had a team make it since Washington made it to the college football playoff in 2016. That's 4 years ago. And it's hurt them tremendously as a conference ever since. Not having a team compete for it all every year hurts them in recruiting. And when you're not recruiting well if you're not making the playoffs, you're not recruiting as well. If you're not recruiting as well, you're not making the playoffs. And it's become a cycle where the teams aren't playing as good enough in the Pac-12 to make the tournament, really. And that's a problem for the conference as a whole. They're by far the weakest of the Power 5 conferences.
Absolutely.
And the road back into the college football playoff is really non-existent at the moment. I don't see a team that's going to make it. Washington's not as good as they used to be. Oregon's not as good as they used to be. USC's not as good as they used to be. UCLA's not as good as they used to be. There's just these teams that are a lot of middle of the road. Arizona just fired their head coach and Kevin Sumlin. So I get it. The Big Ten's not trying to fall into that trap of not having a team in the college football playoff. So yeah, if it was anyone else, they don't make that rule. But I understand why, and I agree because it makes the most sense to improve the conference and keep the conference in relevance and avoid what's happening to the Pac-12.
And Zach, I think the one thing that I do want to give props to, I was looking through earlier this week, of course, after the news. Obviously, if you're a Hoosier fan, you're just so disappointed with this. The athletic director for the Indiana University Hoosiers said the same thing, but not necessarily at the decision, but more so, IU. By the end of the day, they still had a chance to put themselves in to win that game. I commend Indiana University for not being upset more so at the decision, but more so just the opportunity that they could have had. So I give full respect. I know there are probably lots of fans who aren't feeling the same way, but again, I give respect, right. And that just means then, as much as I'm not liking it, that means Ohio State's got to do well for me to represent the Big Ten. I'm someone that if favorite teams don't do well, most of the Big Ten, it's definitely one of the stronger conferences in a lot of different sports. So again, still not happy with the decision, but hopefully Ohio State does well, and they can make a good run and potentially hoist a national championship.
Well, Tanner, I wanna say one more thing. You talked about fairness. I don't think we can talk about fairness here in this one. I know what you're saying. Oh, Indiana shouldn't have made it in, but Indiana, like you said already, Indiana should have won their game. That avoids the fairness talk. You take care of business, people don't get to. You don't get the fairness argument. I think, yes, I think if we're following what the rules were, sure, Indiana should have made it in, but also you've taken into account it's not Ohio State's fault they didn't play that sixth game. It's Michigan's fault. Michigan was the one who had the issues with COVID-19, which caused them to have to cancel the game on Ohio State. So Ohio State did what it could to play the games, and things like that happened. So I think if Ohio State had been the ones that had to cancel that game, I think that's a different story, and I don't think they get in, but I think you have to account for the fact that the reason they didn't play that sixth game was because of Michigan. So I think the dynamic is slightly different.
It's a good point. I had never thought of that. I mean, Michigan not as strong as teams before, but again, not their fault that they could handle with their COVID situation, but didn't think about that. But like I said, hope that the Hoosiers do well in their bowl game, and best of luck to the Buckeyes. And I'm sure, I'm sure that they represent the Big Ten really well.
If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for similar content. Let's get a discussion going down in the comments below. We'd love to hear and debate your opinions as well. And also, you can catch all full episodes of Beyond the Stats on all the major podcasting sites.
What you don't want me to do.